and welcome to the College Football Mafia Network. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown, and this is the hit list. My one-off shows that I'll do once a week. I might just drop them instead of a regular show sometimes during the week, or I even do additional shows each week. And we're glad to have everybody here tonight. Very special with me tonight, since I'm not by myself. That would be Moen. How we doing tonight, Moen?
Doing good. Look at this scar I'm getting.
Is it
Healed
starting
on
to look?
my neck.
That looks
Heal up.
good.
So,
Looks like your girlfriend tried to slit your throat. Is actually
yeah,
what it
that's
looks
exactly what it's going to look like.
like. Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to come up with a story that I survived a prison knife.
I would say that, I have my own scars that, like, there's a catheter one here, like
Grochon.
That's about that big.
Yeah.
And it looks like I've been shot, right? So
Yep.
I tell people
I got one too right here, so I'm just going to start wearing open shirts. Get me a couple of tattoos, some of them like a tattoo over my belly button.
There you go. Whatever it takes. I love it. I want to thank everybody for being here on a Wednesday night. Just for information's sake, but both Danielle Kelly and Jen aren't going to make it tonight. Jen's not feeling well, and Danielle's got so much responsibility. If you don't know, Danielle Kelly's not only a lawyer extraordinaire, especially on our show and other shows in the Southeast, but she's also a full-time weatherman. I would say weather woman, and she's very good at what she does. So I would tell everybody, make sure you're following Danielle Kelly and watch what her predictions are on the weather, especially in the Southeast, anywhere from Tennessee over to the Eastern Seaboard. All right. Let's see here. Since we don't really have a pro forma for these shows, I'm just going to go through a little bit of business, and then we're going to jump into different ideas, things that we can talk about and sort of bring forward in topics tonight. And here we go. Also joining us is Justin Lucas.
Hey there.
Justin Lucas is a student extraordinaire and a booster for University of North Carolina, right, Justin?
Do what now?
Which school is it? North Carolina, North Carolina State?
NC State. Go Pack.
Okay, NC State. I want to make sure I get that right. All right. And if you were with me last week, he came on and we talked some legal stuff that was all tied to the rulings that were going to be happening in is it Mecklenburg County? Do I have that right, Justin?
It is Mecklenburg County, the Charlotte area.
Okay. All right, in North Carolina. And that was for the ACC ruling, not ruling, but the hearing with Florida State. And obviously, we've got more legal stuff coming along with the ACC and Clemson. And that's only the ACC side of the lawsuits. We also are going to have some coverage later on the Florida State side in Florida as well. All right, so let me get a little business done here, and then we can jump into some topics. Please leave your comment or suggestion in the comment section. We're going to try to get as many comments as you can, just so everybody know the rules with these comments. Super chats always get priority. Doesn't matter if you're a member or not. Then we have membership benefits. There's a couple of those. The one that most people use on a daily are they're promoted comments. They're the ones that stand out to me, and I generally pick them over just general comments. And then lastly, it's this idea of Wild Ute University. Let me bring that up so everybody knows what Wild Ute University is. I will never forget and drop pushing forward Wild Ute University episodes. Oh my gosh, and look, somebody else is dropping in. That would be Rock and Rant. How are you doing, Rock?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So give me a couple minutes here. I'm doing some business, and we'll get into some topics, okay? Perfect. All right. So this is the current list of videos that were Wild Ute University, and we put a bunch behind firewalls. That would be added benefits for people that these are videos that are going to be locked up for 2 weeks. Moen, do you want to talk about these 3 videos that we currently have locked up right now?
We've got Couz's Corner, why Couz believes, our friend Justin Couz Walker, why he believes Notre Dame will not join a conference. We've got Wild Ute University doing a deep analytics take on how Washington State and Oregon State, would they fit in the Big 10 or Big 12? Should they be added to the Big 12? And then just yesterday we uploaded Couz has got thoughts on could Miami land in the Big 12 and would they fit? And tomorrow we've got our inaugural episode of Moen Rants, where I bid a fond farewell to a close friend.
Mowing Rants, that's one that everybody has been looking forward to for weeks. And so just so everybody knows, to have access to these ones that say members only, you have to join and be a member of the Big 12 Mafia family. I'm going to run a video here and show everybody how you become a member, and then we'll get on to a couple other things and then get started. So give me a second here.
Want to become a member of the College Football Mafia family? Simply select the Join button from our homepage. There are several options with their own unique benefits to choose from. You can also set yourself to auto-accept gifted membership by selecting the gift settings options as shown.
I appreciate Moen for putting that together. It's really professional, and thank you very much for that, Moen. So just to be clear, you have to be a member to get to those member benefit videos. Right now, there's 3 of them. Tomorrow, there will be 4 when we have the Moen Rants on there. And those will be locked up for a week to 2 weeks, depending on what the video is. And then, of course, anybody has access to the rest of the videos. I posted the link in the comment section if you just want to go to the videos section on the Big 12 Mafia site. And you can see the ones that are wide open, and everybody can read them, comment on them, let us know how we're doing. But I tell you right now, nobody in the business does it better than we do here. Wild Ute University's tip-top. And I would challenge somebody to come up with a better production than we put together as a team. All right. So Rock and Rant, I didn't give you a chance to introduce yourself. I let Justin talk for just a second. Tell everybody what school you support and what you want to talk about tonight.
You know, I am a grad of Miami. I'm a house divided. My wife's a new Big Ten member in the UCLA, so I have a foot in that side as well. And it's actually a relatively quiet week in terms of compared to last week, right? So anything is wild. I think it would be nice to actually hear how everybody's, what lies is everybody telling about spring practice for their team as like our actual football conversation. But I'm definitely curious about everybody's take on the proposed rules of 37 coaches, if you'd like, and what that means to schools that are already at a deficit, or what somebody like Alabama might do.
I think it's a great question. Just file that away when we have a second, and we sort of go around the horn. If there's a topic you want to bring up, it doesn't have to be one we normally talk about. It certainly can be a discussion that we would bring everybody in on. That's what these Q&A sessions are for. This hit list show is primarily for you. We do questions and answers. If we have time, I even let you join the show. I'll put a video. I'll post a link, and you guys can actually join the show as a caller. So these are wide open. They're really whatever you guys want to talk about. We start off with a couple topics. We mark them in the comment section, and we'll sort of follow it from there. But yes, if you'd like to join the show, put your hand up. I will post the link for that. And I'd love to have some conversations about stuff maybe we don't even talk about all the time. All right. So let's circle back on the one thing that everybody knows about that we're not going to let go without a fight, and that is the ACC and the ESPN lawsuits with Florida State, Clemson et al., right? North Carolina maybe coming. You guys are, and it's interesting because you can support schools that are maybe on the inside track or maybe on the outside track when it comes to how you feel about how things are going. So I'm going to start with Justin. You're a North Carolina State guy. Thank you for correcting me on that. You're seeing a lot of social media posts where, are you going to the Big 12? I don't think you want to go to the Big 12, but do you see a home in the Big 10 or the SEC? So kind of how are you feeling post that hearing last Friday?
Well, I think, are you talking about what the judge may do, or just in general?
Whatever. Yeah, just how are you feeling about it?
I think what the judge, I don't think we'll hear tomorrow. We certainly won't hear on Friday because the courts are closed on Friday due to Good Friday. But if I had to imagine what he would do is that he would not dismiss it, and he will not stay it. He did really harp on the material litigation, the vote that is needed to initiate material litigation. And in North Carolina, our state Supreme Court has said before that if you don't follow your internal rules, in this case, the Constitution of the ACC, to file litigation, the original filing is a nullity and it does not stand. And if that were to happen, the date of the ACC's filing would become January 17th. And that would put Florida State first, whereas currently it's December 21st for the ACC and December 22nd for FSU. So if I had to imagine what he would do is he's going to say the ACC can interpret their bylaws as they wish, as long as it's reasonable. That's usually the standard. If their interpretation is unreasonable, then he can supplant his own judgment for it. But I imagine we'll hear sometime next week. He did say that he would rule before April 9th,
Right.
before the hearing in the state of Florida in Leon County. So I would imagine sometime next week. And I would actually be quite surprised if he did dismiss the case. That would be a major, major loss for the ACC.
Now, coming on your side, Rock, you're obviously a fan of and a graduate of the University of Miami. Let me just frame it for the people that are watching now. North Carolina State's over here. Miami is on the other side of that. Miami's sort of the story is that they're going to get an invite to the Big Ten of the SEC. There's a lean there, but there's also that chance that there's a high risk bit of poker being done here. So you saw the rulings last week. You were on the show last weekend, and we talked about it on Friday about how you were feeling. We're a week later now. What's your feelings about where Miami is right now?
I still think on the judge, I'm going to stick with my take last week, unless the judge just feels it's going to boomerang back that the December filing is going to be invalid because it wasn't properly voted on. And unless he just assumes it's going to boomerang back and be joined back up with the Clemson stuff anyway, he's just going to cut to the chase. But if he's looking at a silo, I question whether that will happen. And I don't want to step out of my lane in terms of whether it would then become a January 17th thing, because I'm under the understanding that's an amendment. So I don't know how the amendment, so all of a sudden becomes the original filing as opposed to the amendment. But I'm still on that take. I still believe that FSU is on the right path and what they're doing, and that the judge will probably do a favorable ruling towards that with the original filing. But we'll see. And either way, this is still going to keep moving forward, right? In one venue or another, it's nothing is going away other than what the beginning of the end of the beginning is, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're even to the end of the beginning quite yet. I said that on Greg Pflugar's Peek Around the Corner show months ago. I said, Greg, do you think we're at the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end? And he said, I don't even think we're end of the first chapter, let alone end of the beginning. So this has got a long way to go. I don't think it's going to be settled anytime soon. However, and this is to all three of you, Mo, and I'm going to ask this directly to you first. Do you think it happens before that August 2nd date, which basically is the turn of the year in business? I think it's the 14th of August. Is what Doug Rohan said. Does Florida State have an out by then, and are they alone?
They have an out, and they're not alone.
Okay.
I think this is going to get negotiated and settled. Florida State's out. Clemson's out. I think Miami's waiting to see if they can afford to be out. You would think they could afford to be out, but I think they're afraid they don't have quite the commitment to a spot that someone like Florida State and Clemson do. I think those brands are very confident that they have a spot. North Carolina is very confident they have a spot. I think of the four, Miami has the weakest claim to a spot right now.
Very fair. What do you think about that, Rock?
Look, I mean, taking the green and orange glasses off, I think that's a fair assessment of at least what the perception is out there, right? In terms of, the non-Dennis Dodds of the world that don't think that anybody has a spot whatsoever. That seems to be the chalk on there. When I look at the math on what the proposed numbers are, I'm pretty sure that Miami doesn't have $572 million to go do it. And I don't think that Florida State does,
right.
But I think that someplace between half share and full share that Miami could absolutely conjure that up. It's just a math equation at that point. ACC, what you're going to get from that stuff on a deal that you don't know is going to happen minus what you anticipate the Big Ten deal would be.
What do you think, Justin?
I think first both sides will look to see what the initial rulings are on the motion to dismiss in North Carolina and in Florida, and see how they're doing with each judge. And I think there's a possibility that it could be resolved by August 14th. I think it's August 15th, which is the deadline. So yeah, I think it could be. Is it a 100% possibility that it would? I don't think it is.
Very fair. Let's get to a couple comments. We got people that are in the comment section. By the way, we're 16 minutes into this show, just so everybody knows. Welcome to Bomb3r's Hit List. This is an ad hoc show I'm throwing together throughout the week, anytime, once a week, maybe 5 times a week, maybe no times a week. Just depends what my schedule is. So if you're on the hit list, you're in trouble. So that goes for Moth who says Bomb3r has a hit list. Yes, I do, and I keep track. I write people's names down, and I will hunt you down, I promise. All right, let's get some comments in here. First of all, Ryan Willie says he's a member, and he says Nathan Vanderpump Rules has decided to do a spinoff. It'll be on Hulu. Which one? I've seen like 3. So I'm a fan of Vanderpump Rules. I'm a fan of the Bravo shows in general. Not all of them, but some of them. And yeah, they're man, it's exploding. It's all because of Scandival. Anyway, if you know anything of what I just said, send me a DM and we'll talk offline. All right, let's go to another one here from Ryan Willie. He says, North Carolina State to the Big 12. Let's vote right now. There's 4 of us. Who thinks North Carolina State's going to end up in the Big 12? And I'm not going to put a time on it. Let's just say I do want to put a time on it. Let's say 3 years.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. What do you think?
I think yes. If the ACC completely implodes, yes.
Okay, Rock.
Yeah,
what do you
I think they're big. I think they're Big 12 unless the whole UNC and the state stuff comes through, and I think that either conference, well, SEC more would almost guaranteed just take them along for the ride if they needed to.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I
think
don't
that
know
if
about that.
out of the Big 10 or the SEC, if NC State was to get into one of those, I think it would be the SEC, not the Big 10.
Yeah, Bomber, don't you think that all things being equal, the SEC, let's just play that for a second, would rather have UNC plus NC State than to not get UNC versus like NC State versus Virginia if the win is that you get UNC, which is primarily their number 1 target if you take Notre Dame out of the theoretical equation.
If they can't separate between the two, I think North Carolina stays in the ACC. I don't think either the SEC or the Big 10 takes both of them. That's just my opinion. Look, the ACC has been the slowest one to grow. Yeah, they took Oklahoma and Texas, but they've been planning that for years. It didn't just happen 3 years ago. So I don't think there's any. If the SEC, I don't even think wants to expand. It's almost like they're being forced to. Because of some of these other moves, but I don't even think. I think they're happy with 16.
I think that's the devil, being the devil's greatest trick, right? Was disguising what their master plan was, and
right.
If you're not seeming like you want to date anyone, you definitely come from a position of more power and leverage in any conversation you might want to have. Like, I don't know. I understand that point of view. I can't.
Yeah, it is possible. I'm not saying for sure. I'm not telling people what to think. That's just my opinion. And it's interesting because we all started weeks and even months ago thinking that Virginia and Virginia Tech, North Carolina State, and North Carolina would all go possibly to the SEC. And now the longer this goes and the more Greg Sankey opens his mouth, I don't think the SEC wants to add even one school except for out of just the defensive moves, which I don't think they want to do that. So anyway, we'll find out. It'll be very, very interesting.
Then you would think they wouldn't have negotiated that, their clause to add more teams at the full vote if it wasn't that important. I mean, maybe it's just a contingency, but I don't know. We shall see sooner than some people might think.
I would agree with that part of it. Yes, I think look, this is the one exemplar I would use. We all went through the Pac-12 thing. For 2 years, I was telling everybody on Twitter, and then once I started my show, I was telling everybody the minute USC was gone, Washington and Oregon were never, ever going to sign a deal to keep the Pac-12 alive. They didn't care. They were always going to fight to get into the Big Ten. Even if it meant waiting a year, they would have been willing to do that to get into the Big Ten.
Even if it meant taking $35 million.
Less. That's right. That's right. But they're willing to do it because they know where they want to be at the end.
Right. They're future-proofing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the exact same situation. I don't think the ACC, in fact, I think the ACC is in even a worse situation than the Pac-12 is. because they actually have a contract. They think they're going to live, but they're going to get just decimated because people aren't going to stay in a dead conference. So
No, but you're going to have to remember, though, let's say 4 teams leave and they pay $150 million each.
right.
That's $500 million to be distributed. So
over 13 years.
Well, you don't know how they're going to distribute it. They could say, hey, we'll distribute it over 5 years if you stay.
What?
So that could hold a lot of teams.
I guess they could.
There.
Or 2 years even.
But
Right.
why would they do that when they already have a contract?
Because you want stability. You want exactly what the Big 12 did when they went and added 4 teams. You want stability for a short period of time to see if you can't get your foundation set, get people on board, get your expansion candidates, get shit worked out.
I think that this is the thing. All that may be true. Everything you guys are saying may be true, but they codified in the college football playoff, they codified what they were going to be making in money for the next 8 years.
Sure.
They're not going to make any more money, and they're going to be down each school $10 to $15 million. And that's just CFP money. That doesn't include the other money that are in these other 2 big conferences. So all those things you're saying are exactly true, but now that they're codified, that they're stuck at that rate now that they are, it basically made them second-class citizens. As a Miami fan, as a North Carolina State fan, don't you guys feel like you got totally had your lives turned over when you got valued the same as, the lowly Big 12? Didn't that just rip your hearts and guts out?
It didn't rip my heart and gut out because I think the ACC has sucked for a decade, regardless of Miami's performance in it. So I expect them to make bad business decisions and do.
So
things
you're
poorly.
okay with?
I'm not okay with it. It's just more of it didn't rip my gut out because I totally expected it. You know, like you already knew that something like that was going to happen because no moves had been done. It was foreshadowed by the decisions to panic move or whatever you want to in terms of Cal, Stanford, SMU, just to keep the 15 value. And then in terms of just the playoff, I mean, that's the side hustle, right? In terms of the dollars, there's still an operating presumption there that there is an actual ESPN deal of certain value, which is highly unlikely in the scenario that those, at least even if those top 2 schools go, that's going to get re-upped at least at that same value. I don't doubt that ESPN might continue with ACC in some format as a partner, but what that number is actually probably more of a concern than the difference between Big 2 college football playoff payout to each team versus what the ACC is going to get over the course of the term.
I think it's pretty nihilistic to just say I wasn't expecting anything better, so it didn't rip my hearts and guts out. I don't. How did you feel about that, Justin?
I'm not surprised because we were always leading up to this one, and I'm not okay being a second-class citizen. But I will also say I'm not quite sure what else Jim Phillips could have done in the negotiating room.
There is nothing he could have done. Yeah, he could.
And I feel bad for Jim Phillips because he's a genuinely nice guy. I mean, he really is, and he's very smart. But they were doomed at the moment Oklahoma and Texas left, and they were left with the terrible TV deal that goes till 2036, although it supposedly only now goes to 2027.
2027, and it has to be re-upped next January.
Right. So I'm not surprised. I don't like being a second-class citizen, but I don't know what else they could have gotten.
Yeah. And
you guys are
I don't like being second class.
I can't believe you guys are actually. You guys should be pissed off. You guys should want positive change.
Because it's more of an impetus to get the heck out, right? And if I
then the
0%,
that's my point.
If I had 0% confidence that Miami was going to land somewhere better, I'd probably be way nuclear. Otherwise, it's more of get us out of here faster kind of thing. Hope that everything goes away.
So let's circle back to what we're talking about. Let's circle back to what started this, and this is Moen's teasing you guys with $500-600 million in exit funds, and you both said, "Oh, maybe it's only for 2 years, and we'll get all that money in 2 years." The ACC has
I wasn't saying Miami
incentive.
would get that. I mean, the ACC would get it.
No, I know that. I'm talking about any ACC school that stays. that money is not going to be given to them in a short term because the conference will just disintegrate that much faster if that happens.
I don't think it'll be 2 years, but I could see 5-6 years. It's still going to be enough where it's going to make the payouts bigger
A
than
little bigger, but
it's hey, that's the name of the game. It's still cash is king. Yeah, you're going to have some defections. You're going to have Louisville would probably leave. I don't know that
Louisville, Florida State, once those schools leave to other conferences.
I don't know that Louisville. I don't know that Louisville could afford to leave.
Well, there might not have. Look, we're getting ahead of ourselves. There might not be any charge to leave the conference here pretty soon.
Right. I think they'll negotiate some kind of settlement. I don't think anybody wants this to go with the limit.
Florida State does. Doug Rohan says he's talked to those lawyers and he said they do want it to go to the end.
I think the big unknown here, and we don't know this, and it really is going to determine how long the ACC can stay alive, is how big is the number? Because if the number is $250 million or $300 million,
right?
There's not many schools. NC State certainly doesn't have that kind of money,
right.
To get out. And if it is 300, just throwing a number, if it is 300 million and you have 3 or 4 leave, that's what, $900 million. Not everyone can pay that. And then if you do distribute it within 5 years or 6 years or 7 years to the remaining schools, I could see a scenario where teams do opt to take the short-term windfall from that rather than scurry. But it's unknown. I think it all depends on what the number is. If the number is 100 million or 150 million, it's over. But 300 million, I think that there would be a chance that some would stay to take the money that would be a short-term windfall.
Put your hand up. Who thinks they're getting $300 million per school? Okay. Again, I just don't know.
Now, 250 million, I think there's a chance it could be 250 million.
I think that, look, it could be 500 million, right? I mean, we don't know quite, but that's not the way the story is coming across in court. The ACC got slapped around last Friday.
I think it'll be more than any of us put together will ever make in 100 lifetimes.
That's true. That's right.
It'll be all about the money.
That's the only truism that exists in this entire realignment spread for 3 years. That one you can go to Vegas on.
You got to do this, Moen. Come on. You're going to do that. You got to do this.
I've got a cash gun somewhere.
So Moen's got a new soundboard. He went and had surgery and then came back with a present. So we're going to be dealing with some more sounds tonight. I hope everybody appreciates them. He puts a lot of time in, and they're a lot of fun. All right, we're a half hour in. I want to thank everybody for being here. 80 people watching. 4 guys who don't know anything sit around and argue and debate. I wish we were in the same place because we could be trading drinks and really shucking and jiving, but we're going to have to do it remote here for now. Let me get to some more comments, and I hope, Moen, you're marking some of these because we're up to 100 comments I've missed. I hope you're helping me there.
I am.
Moth Prof, one of our members, says Bomber has a hit list. Okay, I made that joke a minute ago. And then this is the follow-up from Moen. He says, Moth Prof, it's a countdown of his favorite Osmonds record. Dun, dun, dun. That's sure funny. Just so you know, I wasn't really a Osmonds guy. I like the Carpenters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's much better.
Let's get to a super chat here from Ryan Willie, one of our most valuable members. He's for $2. He says, what do you think about the PAC CW contract? Okay, let's jump to the other side of the country. Let's see, Justin, what do you think about that? Did the PAC do well?
Yes, the CW is a national it's all over the country. And when the ACC made a deal with the CW to broadcast some of their games, it was mocked, rightfully so. I mean, but the games didn't do terrible ratings wise. I mean, quite a few people tuned in. I mean, a lot of the games, some of the games outdrew Big 12 games, and I think one Big 10 game did worse than a game on the CW. And the games on the CW were not Florida State versus Miami. They were Austin College versus Northern Illinois or something like that. So yeah, I think they did well. I mean, what else could they have done? I mean, I think considering their circumstances, I think they did well.
What do you think, Rock?
Yeah, I think they did great. You know, people like the ACC going on the CW was the third round of what happened to get that deal available to the CW when their Raycom begets X begets Y deals all imploded when people went bankrupt and everything like that, if I'm not mistaken. But people diminish the CW because they're thinking of programming in the past. Over the air is over the air. It's ubiquitously carried in almost every market. And in a world where the way you tune channels is not old school hitting a dial, it's tagging your team on a lot of menus to find out when they're on. People will find their games, whether they have the best broadcasting team behind them or the production. There was a time years ago where TBS was all about wrestling only, and nobody ever thought that things would come up. So I'm not saying that's what they're going to get to, but
right.
Getting access is a big deal, and over the air where people don't even have to pay for it is certainly better than nothing for two teams up in the upper Northwest with a national deal.
Moen, what do you think?
Yeah, it's the best deal available to them. I mean,
Right.
That's, best available. It's what you do in the draft. If you don't have a position to fill, you get best available. That's what they did.
I think that's probably, that's definitely thinking positive, right? It's the best they can do. The world they got screwed the most in this latest round of realignment for sure. Thank you for the super chat, Ryan. I really appreciate it. Daniel Kopcha says he's been a member. Glad to have him here anyway. Could there be a joint lawsuit between UNC, North Carolina State versus the ACC, or would those be separate lawsuits if they file a lawsuit? Justin, what do you think?
If they filed a lawsuit together, they would be co-plaintiffs. They would file it together. And I'm sort of skeptical that UNC could file a lawsuit without NC State being a part of that lawsuit. But could they file separate lawsuits at separate times? Yes, but the more likely scenario is that they would each be co-plaintiffs at the same time and file at the same time. But I can't even tell you how confusing it would be to have two court cases in the North Carolina court system over the same issue involving different defendants. I mean, it would be, already we have 4 court cases. Could you imagine if we added a fifth or a sixth, a fifth and a sixth, and it'd be within the state? You'd have dueling lawsuits within the state of North Carolina, whereas here we have 2. But yeah, they could file a joint lawsuit and they just be co-plaintiffs. I don't think that it would be a separate lawsuit. And tomorrow, the UNC board's meeting, I doubt we'll hear anything in public from that, but they're going to meet behind closed doors. So we'll see.
Very good. Moen, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm getting excited for that Board of Governors meeting. I'm thinking that there could be fireworks. There could be some shit talking of the ACC. This could be UNC's coming out party. We had Florida State. We had Clemson. Could be the Tar Heels' turn.
Wow, you think so?
Might be.
Maybe.
If it isn't, the reason why it may not be is because tomorrow the basketball team plays in the Sweet 16, and it's pro day there, and I don't know if they want to overshadow that a little bit. But yeah, I think that there is a chance because he was running to WREL, our local news, and was hot about the ACC.
Very good. Rock, did you answer that one? I want to make sure.
No, I get Justin's that you don't want to necessarily hijack UNC's moment in the Sweet 16, but timing is timing. If you want to put any sort of things out there, the board meeting is tomorrow. I don't know when their next board meeting is, and there's a pending court thing going. So if you're trying to decide whether you're going to file something before there's a ruling in North Carolina on the things we're waiting to hear back from the Florida State hearings, or if you want to be ready the hour after that hearing comes down, with whichever way it goes, they may have no choice but to do something tomorrow that sets off the fireworks that Moen's looking, versus waiting for the next regularly scheduled meeting or an emergency. But I could see it being a nothing burger, but nothing that we thought would be nothing. This is why we all have learned way more about conference bylaws and hearings and TV media deals than we ever thought we would have 2 years ago.
We can make Thursdays exciting again.
We're going to do something. Thursdays are going to be a bigger show for us going forward. I want to stop a second and thank everybody for being here on a Wednesday night. If you came looking for Jen and Danielle, the prettier of the three of us that we have been doing shows on Wednesday nights, Danielle is super busy with work and commitments, and Jen wasn't feeling good today. So we want to excuse both them. That's why you're here in Bomb3r's hit list, and we're talking about all news of the day, Q&A. Feel free to join the conversation, leave a comment or suggestion. Definitely join the conversation either way. Consider becoming a member of the College Football Mafia family. And last or not least, super chats. We answer all those. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. That's something I forgot to ask about last night. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us a comment in YouTube. That helps our logarithm, whatever that means. And lastly, we really appreciate everybody being here with us tonight. All right, let's get to another one from Jamie Thornton. Jamie, good to see you. Ryan Willie, I talked to someone today who is associated with one of those NC Board of Governors members. He's convinced UNC can't go anywhere without NC State, that the SEC and Big will have to take both. We will see. We briefly touched on this a second ago. Does anybody believe that they're going to go together? I think you did, right, Justin? You thought?
I've said before that I think they could be separated, but it would be a arduous process. I think the Board of Governors would make certain requirements. So I don't think it's impossible that they can't be separated, but I don't think that it would happen easily.
Yeah, I think it would be North Carolina money.
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever the term for that would be here. Yeah.
It'd be North Carolina money.
Rock, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess it really depends upon how much you then put it theoretically from what tea leaves we're reading, which again we don't know, but we know better than most, at least because we're paying attention to what's going on in Rimbert. It comes to a question of like how much more do they value? We know they value, or at least we perceive that the SEC values UNC greater than anybody else. So then the question is like, if you're forced to take NC State, does that mean because you only want to do two at the most, if they're reluctant to expand, like you alluded to, Bomber, that would they give up Clemson for that? Like, what's the additive value of lose UNC because you won't take NC State, but you have to give up Clemson if you only want to do two, or are you willing to go further? There's so many of the trains leaving Chicago scenarios, and what gets to what state first with what detour that I used to completely blow in math class in high school and beyond. But that's kind of where we have to figure out is where do they value things truly when it comes down to it if they're forced to make a tough decision.
Very fair. Moen, what do you think?
Yeah, no, there's gonna be a payout. North Carolina's going to have to do something to
like Calford, right? Let's give it reference.
It's like this is a Cala money. This will be Carolina money, and they'll have to pay a certain amount each year to cover North Carolina State's shortfall for leaving them behind.
And I would add to that, and something I meant to mention earlier is we have exemplars all over the country now where state schools have been separated so that one could be better, frankly, have better access than the other. It's happened in California, Washington, Oregon, Utah, not Utah, but like Oklahoma. I mean, Texas has some schools. So it's not the exception. It's normally the rule that these schools will separate and they'll just write them a check. So we'll have to see. I don't know.
The Board of Governors is more aligned with NC State. I mean, the chair of the board is an NC State mega donor.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you present the financials, UNC. Now, I will say the one thing that really could stop them from is if the legislature told them, because that's who appoints the Board of Governors. If they don't want UNC and NC State to separate, they're not going to separate, because then the Board of Governors would lose their job and lose their appointment. So that's the only way I would see at the end of the day that they'd be separated. So
I think that's fair. Yeah. And also we have to realize that there are bigger fish out there than just these schools and even sports.
Right.
That's something we all have to admit, that sports does drive all the business to the school. There's no doubt about that, but it's not the final thing that matters to these school presidents. Although,
what hasn't been answered, you can go, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, finish.
What hasn't been answered by the Board of Governors, since they passed that resolution in January or February, is is, does the financial plan have to account for the entire UNC system, not just UNC
Right.
Chapel Hill? Because you can see how there could be two different avenues there. If it's just UNC Chapel Hill, that's obviously more favorable
Right.
to UNC Chapel Hill. But if they have to account for the entire UNC system, which includes NC State, that could be a little more dicey. And the president of the system has so far resisted answering that question, probably for good reason.
Super chat, another one from Ryan Willie. Thank you very much, Ryan. For $5, he says, I'm just a fan, but I have to leave room for these new sounders. He says, I'm just a fan, but I don't see the SEC taking North Carolina State. You and me both, Ryan. But who knows? You know, anything can happen until it can't. But thank you very much for the super chat, Ryan. Really appreciate it. Moff Prof digging at me again. Thanks, Mo and Bomber is an Osmond groupie. I will say this. My father played football with the Osmonds in the 70s. I'll tell you that. They had a family football game. My dad went and played touch football at their house. So take it for what you will. Expedition Greg, good to see Expedition Greg, who's a member. He says, I have thought Louisville fits in the SEC. I don't know.
Louisville can't even hire a basketball coach.
What do you guys think about that? Do they fit in the SEC?
Depends on what Mitch McConnell wants. If Mitch McConnell wants to push them into the SEC, he might. He pushed them into, the deal they're in now. So
there's actually a great story. There's actually a great story from 2011. Joe Manchin and Mitch McConnell fought really hard over the last Big 12 expansion spot between West Virginia and Louisville. It was like a major thing for Joe Manchin. Like he ran on it.
Right.
And so when politicians get involved, anything can happen, I guess.
Very fair. How about you, Rock? Do you think they fit or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, I get it from a media rights perspective and all the additive, all the other things. But the SEC was also built on having a lot of their schools with the two in-state rivals playing each other all of the time, right? So it is part of their core DNA. And I understand if it moves past it, but I think putting Louisville, Kentucky back into the mix, and there's some interesting matchups with Louisville, both on the hoop side, which I know is not driving it on, but the football side. So I could see that. Let's put it this way: if it went to 22 or 24, I totally could see that happening. But I don't know that that's a horse that I would be expecting to ride on anytime soon.
I think that's a good idea. I don't think it is either. Louisville, I don't think Kentucky wants Louisville in the SEC. That's just.
Well, I guess that comes down to like how much is that veto of the past where Florida can block Florida State and
I don't know.
Can block Louisville in play when does it only apply if you've been in the conference for 50 years? But Texas A&M, sorry, bro, boys.
I don't know.
I know the values are different too, for sure.
It's all until you look at the money, and then everything's equal. So, Expedition Greg, Moen, why don't you touch on this?
Yeah, just I wanted to put this out there. Greg is going to be streaming that Board of Governors thing live on his channel tomorrow. So that's where I'll be watching it, and I think a lot of people will. Jamie Thornton seems to think that we should wait until afternoon. She said the big fireworks will be afternoon, but so don't get too discouraged if early in the morning it seems boring.
Jamie,
I'm
Jamie,
confused.
I haven't seen my DM that tells me what's going to happen tomorrow. You need to send that to me so I can hear the skinny before it happens. Go ahead, Rock.
I was going to say, is it live and streaming, which is what I thought it was, or is it a closed door meeting? Because
it'll be both. It'll be both. They'll open it live, they'll shut it down, and go close.
Okay,
I think it'll be in the morning because what I'm looking at, the full board meeting is at 9 o'clock tomorrow. It starts at 9 o'clock tomorrow, and I don't think that they'll be in, based on this agenda, they won't be in that long. So I think we'll probably know in the morning what happens. So I don't think a lawsuit is coming tomorrow. Just barking.
Right. So just so everybody knows, when we talk about Greg, it's Peek Around the Corner, Greg Flugar. Everybody should go look him up on YouTube. And what time we're saying? 9 Eastern?
I believe so. I would go look for College Football Peek Around the Corner with Greg Flugar.
All right. Everybody go watch Greg tomorrow. That's perfect. All right, let's get to some more comments here. Let's see. Jamie Thornton. Here's one from Jamie. If ESPN doesn't opt out of the media deal, nobody is paying that price to get out of the ACC for the Big 12. I would counter that saying the ACC is going to sign the deal, but they're going to want to renegotiate the amount. They're going to give the schools about 2/3 of what they're making right now once Florida State and whoever else leave. So, yeah, they'll sign the deal. We talked to Bob Thompson. If you didn't know, we had Bob Thompson on last night. We talked for 45 solid minutes. He answered several of these questions. So don't take it from me. Go and watch last night's show, and you'll hear it right from Bob. But yeah,
Here's an interesting question that I have.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I know basketball doesn't fuel realignment that much, but ESPN places a lot of value on the Duke versus UNC
Right.
basketball rivalry, and I don't think that they want to share that with in any way with Fox. I think that they want to keep that. So I'm really interested in where Duke falls in all of this, because the basketball program speaks for itself, but the football value is not really there.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything about that?
Well,
Yeah,
I think ultimately has to. Go ahead, Mo.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say they can't make a deal based off of 2 games in a season. They have to they have to worry about how much does UNC period in basketball matter to them for all the season's worth of games, and the same thing for Duke. Because you're talking about $1 billion deals, or hundreds of millions of it relative to basketball, whatever percentage you want to take away from it. So they're at the best, they're going to meet 3 times in a year with the conference championship tournament as well. And I guess in the tournament, but that's CBS, TBS, TNT.
Right. These rivalries will continue to be played even if they're not in conference rivalries. Keep in mind, ESPN has first rights on the ACC. They could lose 4 schools and Duke could stay in the ACC, and they say, hey, we're gonna stick it out and we'll just schedule North Carolina twice a year like we always do, and that'll still be ESPN property.
Sorry, I'm answering a DM I got. That's interesting. Anyway, all right. I think we answered that one. You guys did a good job. How about this one from Illini Ted? If the ACC implodes, do you think the teams not getting it into the remaining P3 would try to create a new power conference that could fill the void? If so, what teams would be in the top of that list? Moen, tell everybody about the diminished ACC.
It's a diminished ACC. It is what it is. It's not going to be a power conference in the sense that you're going to have a team at the top. Your best teams are probably going to be Virginia Tech. It's going to be diminished. I used an analogy last night of Burger Chef, and then I found out this morning that Burger Chef actually closed its last restaurant in like 1999.
that was a joke that fell flat a little bit after.
Well, I'm old enough to remember Burger Chef. And
I remember them.
Right.
Yeah.
They were number 2 right behind McDonald's, right up
Yeah.
until like 1975.
That's
So
right. Burger King took over and took a lot of the bandwidth from Burger Chef. And
Right.
by the end of the 90s, they were pretty much.
They got bought out by Hardee's, but that's neither here nor there. But that's
right.
That's what's going to happen. I think the ACC as it stands now has Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina. Taking those 4 schools away, you greatly diminish the power of that conference. And there's not comparable schools out there that they can add to bring it back up to that. I think Oregon State and Washington State are the first 2 in. Tulane, UConn possibly, Tulane, maybe Memphis, but you're going to find yourself in a similar position to the Big 12. I don't think you're going to have the top brands. All the top brands are going to be in the 2 Big 10 and the SEC. So you're going to have a more balanced conference. It'll be good play. It'll be fun to watch, but it's just not going to be considered a power conference.
I'd bet a lot of money that the ACC's first call when they have to add schools would be to UConn, because back when Maryland left, it was between Louisville and UConn for the for their spot. So UConn will probably be I don't know if UConn will want to leave the Big East. I mean, they're doing really good in the Big East now since they rejoined from the American, but that's my thought.
Any conference they go to, Any conference that UConn goes to that plays football is going to require them to invest major money in football. They're not going to let them continue to limp football along just to be a basketball powerhouse. If they were doing that, they already have Duke. They don't need another Duke. So go ahead, Rock.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So Duke's been pretty decent the last several years. We'll see what happens with their new coach. I think they actually, there isn't going to be a world where they become anything other than the P3.5, right? That's probably the best they could aspire to.
Right.
And they might want to just steal a little bit of at least how people perceive what the Big 12 is trying to do is to become the best basketball conference. So if you focus from that perspective next, knowing that, probably most of your schools aren't real. Of course, they'd love to compete for a football national championship, but if they really aren't going to do that, then you just want to have the best football program you can and have the, chance of qualifying for the playoffs, but just lean into what your DNA was anyway from the beginning before, the Florida States and Miamis and everybody else came in varying degrees and get UConn. It also depends upon the Big Ten has been fortunate. They've been able to expand and kind of culturally keep their core about the academic side as they perceive it. Some others might perceive it as elitism. What does the ACC do in that moment? Because that would be the difference. Yes, Tulane's not a problem. Would they go to Memphis, or are they ready to move past that moment? They did a little bit with Louisville when Louisville came in, but Louisville's still, and these are all good schools, so it's just a relative conversation. Like what kept Washington State and Oregon State out, right? As a great example, was it
right?
Snobbery?
Geography more than anything at this point.
Yeah.
If they were a couple schools in the Midwest, they'd already be in the Big 12. I think geography works against them. So it's just a tough deal. Realignment's killing everybody. Moen, do you want to comment on this one at all?
No, I already did.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I didn't miss you. Laura Weiss, one of our members, says, I think ESPN's decision about 2027 will tell the tale. Just to be clear, this is the ESPN contract that can be basically voided after 2027, but that decision has to be made next January or February in 2025. So it's coming right up. That's why all this realignment stuff has to be done before then. So ESPN knows what it's got. But I know they're going to get a bunch of money from schools, potentially a lot of money from schools leaving the conference. But between the value they're going to lose in their media contract just by itself, because they lost properties, Florida State, Clemson, on top of that, and then the loss of prestige, 3.5, is that enough for the ACC?
It's still better than what the Pac got.
It is.
The ACC is still in a much better position
Right.
than the Pac ever was. They're
Right.
East Coast time schools for the most part, but you've
Right.
still got East Coast time slots, which are the most valuable, get the most eyeballs, the advertisers covet. So
yeah, that is true. That is true. You guys want to comment on that?
I just had a question. What do you guys think? If ESPN doesn't it waits to the 11th hour to decide on their deal, they could do it tomorrow if they wanted to, but they have to do it by a certain date. Like, how do you think that it changes the movement of the chicken or the egg? Does the ESPN wait to see how all the fights go? But what if all the fights aren't really settled, or the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 schools in theory haven't raised their hand to go somewhere, and they're waiting to see what happens for ESPN? Like, how do you think that changes anything at all? Like, do you think ESPN's going to do it before then, or are they going to wait to the 11th hour to decide and tell everybody what they're doing?
it's a great question.
Yeah, go ahead, Moen.
It's going to be dependent on whether or not those ESPN rights get unsealed. If we get a look at those contract documents, I think that's going to make the biggest difference in the world. I don't think ESPN wants those coming out. I think if they do come out, I think that it's going to very, very, very negatively impact the ACC.
Agreed. You want to add anything to that, Justin?
I think any good business person would probably wait to the 11th hour on the option to see the landscape, because you're right. these legal fights could not be over by then. And I think you'd want the most information possible to make that decision. And I don't think many people expect ESPN to outright decline the option and to just end the contract, because they do need content. I mean, like ESPN has 6 channels to fill time slots with. So yeah,
they still have all of the slots. I mean, the worst case for the ACC, forgetting about who gets left, is you're probably conference 3.5 or 4, whatever way you want to put it, in the football. And depending upon how it all shakes out on any given year, you're conference 1 or 2 in hoops, right? Like it's you in the Big 12. And if you can't get, that's not going to help all of your money side, since it's so weighted football versus hoops. But that's kind of the worst case versus what the Pac-12 had to experience.
Very, very smart. John D, a member, for $5 gives us a super chat. He says the diminished ACC could be $80 million per year behind the P2. Factoring in CFP money, ACC teams will have to bolt to the Big 12. So he's basically putting numbers to what I was saying. The disparity in what they would be making in some of these other conferences is going to get very painful. You guys, anybody want to comment on that?
I think teams would bolt to the Big 12, but it depends on how much they have to pay to leave. I don't think anyone's paying 150 or even 200 million to go to the Big 12.
Right.
Yeah, there's a math number there for sure. And then there's a hassle factor, right? If there's a $10 million disparity between what it ultimately plays out for you in the ACC versus the Big 12, I don't think that Duke's leaving if they don't have to, if others are okay to wait here and stay, right? They'll figure some other path out. They'll raise donations. If it's ultimately a $30 or $40 million gap, then that might, I don't know what that number is, but I think there's probably, it's not a pure 1-for-1. There's a number where the difference between what they get in the ACC and the Big 12 makes somebody leave, and a number that makes them just stay if enough of their friends on Tobacco Road are sticking.
Moen, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you, John. We appreciate it very much. Appreciate you being here. Let's see here. So, we got some great comments and questions. I put a comment in here so I didn't forget it. So I'm going to bring it up so I don't forget it. Let's see. It's this one right here. This is from me, College Football Mafia. I put in, is there any chance the Big 12 could convince Notre Dame to join a scheduling agreement and basically replace the ACC once it scoops up some of the remaining good brands in the ACC? What do you guys think about that? What do you think, Justin?
No, I don't think that's
okay.
A possibility. I think that they'd probably try and set one up with the Big Ten or the SEC, if the Big Ten or SEC would be so inclined. But I don't know if those two are very willing to help Notre Dame continue their independence, should the ACC, a scheduling agreement with them, blow up.
Okay.
But I don't see the scheduling agreement continuing in a diminished ACC, because who are you playing?
Right.
Boston College,
Wake Forest.
Yeah.
Syracuse.
Right.
Anyway, what do you think, Rock?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think they'll have other options, but second, I think they'd be more likely to either, if they didn't have an option, for whatever reason, the Big Ten and SEC were just done with their games, and the Moens of the world rebelled about giving them a favorable deal outside of, hey, we have 2 or 3 non-conference games a year, and we'll schedule as you were. I think they'd be more likely, if the Big East hadn't, imploded and people went to the ACC, to do basketball here and keep hockey in the Big Ten, keep their freedom. They're not going to have a hard time scheduling football regardless of anything, right? They're always going to play Navy. They're always going to play Stanford. They're always going to play USC, no matter how many. Even if USC if the Big Ten went to 10 big conference games, I'm sure they would still play Notre Dame as an out-of-conference game. So I don't really see that as an option. But I think some Big 12 teams would get pulled into the mix to help them go around, and get exposure in other cities and geographic areas now that they have more flexibility.
Yeah, very possible. Moen, do you think there's any chance that could happen?
Well, that's up to Brett Yormark. Is Brett Yormark going to grab ankle like Jim Phillips does? Because, I mean, Notre Dame ended up getting Stanford, Cal, and SMU into the conference, they get more money and they don't have to be a full member. And I'll go through this tomorrow with my goodbye to Jack Swarbrick. But that man has done more to sit there and boast about how bad college football is now. And he's the one most responsible for it. He did it to him. He did it to him on all fronts. And Jim Phillips just let him have. I understand Jim Phillips is in a bad position, but you can tell Jack Swarbrick no. You can say, hey, Jack, you know what? No, we're not going to do that. Jack, you know what? We could use your help right now. Become a full member and stabilize our conference. That would help us out. And then we'll add Stanford and Cal. Oh, you don't want to join our conference? You just want us to add Stanford and Cal and permanently let you schedule Stanford as one of your ACC squads? Permanently? I mean, guy's incredible. I won't get into it. Just tune into Mo and Rants tomorrow in the members.
Turn into Mo and Rants tomorrow night. All right, we're an hour in. I was expecting a cool sounder from Moen for a top of the hour sounder. We got one in there somewhere, Moen?
Sure.
It's time for another good idea, bad idea.
Okay, is it over?
It's over.
Okay. All right. Really quick, I want to just do a circle back on all the stuff we have going here at College Football Mafia. These are our shorts that we have that are on the back end and on the front end of our firewall for members. Members only videos right now. Coos Corner, could Miami land in the Big 12 and would they fit? Wild Ute University, should the Big 12 add Oregon State and Washington State? And lastly, another Coos Corner special, why Notre Dame will not join a conference. I want to encourage everybody to join the Big 12 College Football Mafia family, and you have access to not only these, but all these other wonderful Wild Ute University shorts. They're amazing products. They're top of the quality scale on YouTube. I encourage everybody to go watch the ones that are even free. And then would encourage everybody to sign up as a member, because that's what we do here. We give gift memberships to people, and then we hope that other people will take those gift memberships and pay them forward. We appreciate everybody being here tonight. And I want to thank both Rock and Rant and Justin Lucas for giving me some time tonight. And we'll get through a few more comments here, guys. You guys ready for some more? I'll say yes. Okay. Marcus Williams for $2 says, ultimately, who do you see in the big SEC and 12? Do it again, Moen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
All right. Let's talk about this. Rock, ultimately, who do you see in the big SEC and Big 12? And I would just say, you don't have to mention the schools that are already there. We're just talking about the ACC. Where do those schools go?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just going to go off the presumption that Notre Dame's not going anywhere this round. That's my take. I don't think they have to. They're getting more in the college football playoff than the ACC members are when it's all said and done. So I don't think they're going to have to do that. And I don't think this is the last round, but the next one for me is Florida State and Miami to the Big Ten. Not necessarily the exact same moment, but within 2 to 3 years of each other total, possibly at the same time. I think it's Clemson and North Carolina. And then I do think the Big 12 takes 4 from the ACC. I do think there's value there, and that would be the NC State, Virginia Tech, and I'll say Pitt and Louisville.
Okay. What do you think, Justin?
I concur mostly with that, but I think that there's also a scenario that is under discussed, but I think could actually happen, is a forming of a new conference. If you read Ross Dellinger's piece a couple of days ago, I think last week, whenever Clemson filed their lawsuit, he makes reference to how joining another conference may not be the most likely option for Florida State and Clemson. And you have to think, would a 7 or 8 team reformed or cured ACC make more money? And would ESPN be open to that with the option that they have? Could they engineer that? But I concur, if we're operating under the assumption that people are going, I concur with almost everything Rock and Rant said.
Okay, Moen, what do you think?
North Carolina and Clemson to the SEC, Miami and Florida State to the Big Ten. At that point, I don't know that the Big 12 goes. It's going to depend on that money. If that's $500, $600, $700 million to be disbursed, I don't think schools are going to jump right away. I think they're going to wait. The Big 12 might have to wait a couple years before it can get bigger again.
Okay. I would say by 2026. So that's 2 years. And I think the ACC has a chance to stick around. It will depend basically on what North Carolina does. I think Florida State, Miami, and Clemson are all gone. It's just a matter of where they go. If North Carolina folds and decides to stay with North Carolina State, it'll still be a conference. I think basically they'd be peers to the Big 12, but I think long term they're still they are weak because North Carolina could still bolt at any time. And as long as you have those schools that hold that over your heads as a conference, you're weak. Ask Oklahoma and Texas how they were dealt with the Big 12. Ask USC how they handled that at the Pac-12. It just, it's a man without a country at that point, I think. Just a matter of time. Anyways, Marcus, great question. Thank you very much for the super chat. Let's get to some more comments out here in the Twitterverse. All right, let's go. Tony Lawson. Here we go. Tony's in from the wilderness. Good to see you. ACC is on the CW also, along with golf and NASCAR. It's growing brand in sports. Bob Thompson talked how would you put it, Moen? He didn't put down CW last night. He said they have some good stuff.
No, he was very pragmatic on CW and their sports program.
Yeah. Which kind of surprised me because I thought he would make a joke about it. What you guys that dealt with the CW last year, what do you guys think about it?
I had no issues with it. I mean,
no, go ahead.
Which one?
Either one of you. Go ahead, Justin. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I thought it was great. I mean, their announcers were good. Their presentation was good. I mean, at first it was mocked, but once you got there, I mean, I didn't have any problem with it. Florida State not Florida State, Clemson and NC State. That's the game that I watched on there because I'm an NC State fan. Right. Clemson versus NC State on there was fine. I mean, it was great production. I mean, had no real complaints about it. And basketball was good too.
Way better than Raycom or Bally, right? Which is essentially what the CW deal is. Bally goes bankrupt, go to CW. Everything about it was better. One, especially actually knowing that you had the channel on whatever carrier you had streaming wise to do that. Bally was hard. You know, it's hard enough sometimes finding an ACC networking when and that's why your goal is to be playing better teams and have a better record to not be on that channel. But CW at least spent some money. I'll give them that, and it doesn't really matter what they had Smallville or whatever show is on CW. I have no idea. It's irrelevant. Live sports is everything, which is why True TV is moving all to live sports, right? Because that's the only thing that's mattering on TV for the most part.
What are you talking about? You got Riverdale, Smallville, Supernatural, One Tree Hill. Those are all, and isn't Nitro or some wrestling, AWE or something like that on CW?
AWE.
I'm just teasing. Just
Just throwing letters out there, hoping one of them sticks.
Is it AWE or AEW? There's another wrestling.
There's AEW. That's the Warner Brothers brand.
Okay, all right, whatever. Who cares? I don't watch it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
AWE.
Jamie Thornton says UNC is going to be real live soap opera for sure. Expedition Greg, as they will be fighting the ACC and the North Carolina Board of Governors. Is that what you anticipate there, Justin?
Tomorrow, I think there's a chance that they could bark. I think there's also a pretty good chance that they don't, and that they just do it behind closed doors and they go into closed session. But let's be clear. If there's a fight between the Board of Trustees and the Board of Governors is going to win that 7 days out of the week.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Isn't that likely the outcome of a Board of Governors versus Board of Trustees fight? Like that's what seemed.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Which I'm saying there's not going to be any fight because it's predetermined who's going to win that anyway.
Very fair. Tony Lawson says the Biden Justice Department is going after Apple. Moen, you're more plugged into this legal stuff than I am. Have you heard that?
No, but good. Fuck Apple.
They're going after them for their monopoly on I think it's on making iPhones as a thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. So to follow
They're
that
the
up,
only
there
ones
was
who are
this,
making them.
there was this comment that was also around the same time from Chris E that says Apple ain't offering ESPN money, and Apple has no exposure like ESPN. MLS on Apple hype has died down. No one is watching MLS. Does anybody think Apple's going to get into this at this late date for realignment? Could they? Of course they could, but does anybody think they're going to?
I think they'll take a secondary package from somebody someday at a price, but in any lead thing that's going to fundamentally change a conversation on a conference, I even if they did, I wouldn't do it. That's the one thing I might have agreed with what was going on with the Pac-12. It's very the exposure aspect. Just think of the NHL, what they're dealing with, even like with NBC years ago and their rev share. It kind of harmed them to not be on ESPN at that time, the way they restructured it, and their audience rebounded only when they got back on a lot more things where people knew where to tune them in. So dangerous, dangerous play. A special Wednesday package as a side hustle from a main deal, maybe.
Yikes, that's scary.
For the
That is
G5
really
school
scary.
conference, who knows?
Tuesday nights. Tuesday night
can
at
air Max.
10 Eastern.
Mac, right?
Oh, geez. Maction.
Yeah.
Bill G, one of our long-term members. Good to see you here, Bill. He says Burger Chef was everywhere. Yep, I remember it. They were everywhere. King Spleen, that's a great name. Says, I bet it will be USF. The ACC will want Florida market, and Miami alone doesn't do that. In a rebuilt ACC, I definitely think USF. But Jim Williams thinks they're right there, just waiting for the invite, waiting for the phone to ring. What do you guys think about USF for the ACC?
Makes sense, especially if they lose Florida State and Miami. They would have no Florida schools left. It'll be real hard for Notre Dame. Notre Dame wants to be playing a team in Florida every few years for recruiting purposes. So,
absolutely. Anybody else? Any other comments?
Yeah, I think now that they have invested again and they got their AAU status too, so it's a double thing. They've invested in sports and they got the academic blessing of the AAU. Not that it's the same thing as it was for the Big Ten, but it certainly matters if the AAC is trying to stay somewhat academically cohesive, if they are.
So let's look at Florida as a government for a second. So USF, University of Southern Florida, got, what was it, $250 million for a new football stadium. And then it's going to grow from there. And Miami's still playing at Hard Rock.
Yeah. Oh, one's a private school, one's a public.
I know the difference.
School and one's public.
I know the difference. Where my head is going is Miami has visions of grandeur without a football stadium. That's pretty tough. That's a tough.
Yeah, the Orange Bowl wasn't our stadium either. Didn't seem to matter too much.
Okay, see, there you go. Good reply.
I mean, that wasn't. It was the Dolphins Stadium, and then the Dolphins moved to Hard Rock. And
I remember.
The reason why we don't have it anymore is because the city of Miami government was basically wanting a school who's a renter to pay to build the house over again, right? And there's probably ways that it could have gotten done, but yeah, it was ugly.
Steve, hi, Florida. Good to see you here, Steve. Says, so the ACC members that aren't going to the Big Ten SEC are going to take a diminished ESPN contract and watch all three other conferences get another media deal before they can get their media deal. So everybody except for the ACC is re-upping again in 29, 30, and 34 or 33.
Nuts.
Yeah, I mean,
Jim Swafford, everybody for the win.
Yeah.
And Jim Swafford and his son, right, at Raycom, something like that.
Oh yeah, they went to the school of how to conference bad.
Here's one. You guys can comment on this. Jamie Thornton is teasing, not me, teasing Ute. Where is the Wild Ute to the SEC, Bomber?
Where's
Utah
the demand?
To the SEC.
Where's the demand? Give us the demand first. Everybody, when he was doing Big Ten shit, nobody would talk about anything but Big 12. When are we getting the Big 12 in? When are we getting the Big? Now we're doing Big 12, and now Jamie wants to bring up the SEC.
I'm telling you, look. SEC drives the bus. Owen.
We're doing the MAC next.
The MAC before the SEC.
We're doing the MAC.
All right, Jamie. I hope you know we're just having fun. Thank you very much for your comment. I really appreciate it. Daniel Kopcha, my Twitter mate, How you doing, Daniel? He says, counter question to Bomber, could Notre Dame rejoin the Big East like UConn? Does anybody believe that could happen?
Could it happen? Sure. Will it happen? No.
Okay. All right. Anybody disagree with Moen? All right. We got about 10 more minutes. Just last call, just letting everybody know. We appreciate you guys being here tonight. 90 minutes for me is pretty good on an off night. So we're going to go for about 10 more minutes. I want to invite people to continue to leave comments. Super chats will all get read. Obviously, the member chats I try to defer to. I encourage everybody to hit that gift bar. But it's a gift button, right, Moen, down by the comment section where you can gift a membership to the Mafia family. And yeah, we invite everybody to do that as well. All right. Let's see how many of these we can bust through really quick. Chrissy says, Notre Dame's strength of schedule already questioned. Joining the Big East will eliminate them from getting an automatic playoff bid. I don't think they're going to be I don't think they're doing anything with the Big East.
The Big East doesn't even play football now.
Yeah, no, they don't. Jamie Thornton says, does the Big Ten really care that much about the stadium Miami plays in, Moen After Dark, or playing in a pro stadium? That was a joke I made. Moen thinks that Miami's going to be okay.
Yeah, they'll be fine. They don't. Obviously, it's not optimal. Obviously, they'd like to see some plans to where Miami is going to build an off-campus or an on-campus stadium. They'd also like to see some plans on how they're going to up their enrollment. They have a very small enrollment when compared with some of the other schools in the Big Ten, but overall, the stadium is not as big an issue as people would make it out to be.
I'd love one. Maybe the Big Ten academic consortium can figure out how to get the city of Coral Gables to both expand geographically footprint and give us land and approve anything that is beyond a parking meter. Are you guys
out of swampland that you can drain? Isn't there any more swampland you can drain down there?
There is, but that's further away than Hard Rock, so it would sort of
it doesn't do any good then.
the mission statement,
Okay. Sky, who's one of our members, leaves a comment here. What's ironic for Washington State and Oregon State is that they will get more national exposure on the CW than they have ever had before. And I think all four of us nod our heads about that. That is ironic, but it's a fact. Let's see here. Get to some more. Jamie Thornton just pounding away on the comments. Jamie, thank you very much for all your participation. I really appreciate it. Expedition Greg says, I think UNC will have a much longer fight than Clemson or Florida State. What do you guys think about that one? Justin, what do you think?
I agree with that. I don't know how much longer, but it will be longer because Florida State and Clemson don't have a sister school to deal with. I mean, they don't. I mean, Miami's not a public school, so that they really don't have to worry about them. But UNC does have to take into account NC State on some level. So yeah, I do think it'll take longer. How long? I don't know.
Rock, what do you think about that?
I think it just, in theory, that makes total sense. But these things, depends upon how fast the implosion on the level happens, right? When you're put into a position that you have to make a quick decision or you miss the ticket, nobody really cares if you are the fourth person to get the fourth seat in the front row, right? But if there's no more seats available because you were debating whether to hit the buy button, then, everything could change. So I guess it really depends on how fast the momentum happens with all of the assumption that Realignment is going to really kick in the next several months before the ESPN contract. They're going to have to make a decision, and people have to figure out how much they really want to die on that hill.
Seems very fair to me. Moen, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. Going back to what Rock and Rant said, why don't we just make a floating stadium out on Miami Beach? We'll sink some pylons just like they do it with oil rigs all the time.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
We'll get the guys from Purdue on it. We'll get the guys from Purdue on it.
All right, yeah, that's right. You should do that. It's a good idea. Let's see. April Holly. Sorry. Hi, April. Yeah, Danielle and Jen aren't here tonight. Danielle had a lot of work to do, and Jen wasn't feeling well. But love it when Danielle is on the show. Yeah, love to see you too, April. Thanks for coming in tonight. Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. Sky says no MAC expansion without Western Kentucky.
Or Northern Iowa. I like Northern Iowa too.
No MAC expansion. How about Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech? Let's get a little bit of drinking out there. Hopefully everybody's had a good time tonight. It's been a lot of fun. See if there's any other comments here I just got to have. Let's see here. Oh, Dan Miter says, just got here. Georgia Tech to you all. Thank you very much, Dan. It's been a good show. A lot of Q&A. Sorry you came in late. We're going an hour and a half tonight, so I appreciate everybody for being here for as long as you were. Let's see. There's a couple more. Let's see. Here we go. UNC is the heart of the ACC. The conference will fight hard not to lose them. You agree with that, right, Justin?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not the reason why there's so many ACC championships in the state of North Carolina, but yes, they will fight very, very hard to keep them there, very hard. But if you go by what the chair of the board is saying, I don't think he's want to help the ACC out even a little bit.
Does UNC know that they can't actually take their rests and their conference rulings with them if they leave the ACC?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why. Yeah. I think that's one of the things. I think that's what Jim Phillips likes to remind them of. Like, you run the place over here. I mean, you're not going to get that treatment anywhere else.
That's
is Jim Phillips actually alive right now? Because if the ACC, if Greg Sankey was in Jim Phillips' position right now, he would be on somebody's show every third day, right?
I will say this. Jim Phillips, because I watch the ACC network, Jim Phillips has been on more TV shows the last week since Clemson's lawsuit than I have seen him on TV shows before. I mean, he was on radio shows. He was talking to, I forget her name, Nicole Auerbach. I mean, he was on two ACC network shows. And I don't know why he's all of a sudden changed his PR strategy, but whatever it is, he probably should have thought of it 6 months ago.
Well, Jack Swarbrick retired. And he was able to hang up the leash and get a little yard time.
All right.
Like yesterday,
I was Stack Skills course for how to commission a conference that's dying.
You guys, man, you're just beating on Phillips. Jeez.
He's a good guy.
Jared Jones coming in late. Good to see you, Jared. Says, awesome show, gentlemen. Thank you much, Jared. We do it for you. I appreciate you coming, even if it's just at the tail end of the show. Let's see here. Jamie Thornton says, Rock and Rant, Immaculate and I had a great conversation about Georgia Tech last night. I love it. Georgia Tech is a great academic school, but their athletics are a disaster. What do you guys want to say about that from Jamie?
Well, we'll let them into the Big Ten if they build that floating stadium down there in the ocean.
There you go. There you go.
Hey, somebody has to be, the bottom feeder. I wish I knew more about their athletics department as an overall conversation. It's a great school, great part of, it's in a great city. It's a lot there to add. Got a varsity, or at least they used to have a varsity near there, which is almost like being in the SEC.
Hey, really quick note to Jamie, and then I'll let anybody else that wants to comment on this. That's fine. But Jamie, you sent me a DM about you wanted to do a show with Immaculate, or you thought you could do a show. If you still are interested in doing a show, like producing a show yourself, you have a good idea, and you think, we could throw something together, we have open times and days. Send me a DM, and you and I can have a conversation about it. We can, meet you. Get you with Moen and Ute and I. We can have a conversation. Always open to that. This is what our community is, and I don't want anybody to think we're not listening to them. Let's see, a couple more here. Oh, did anybody else want to comment on this before I pass it? All right. Let's get to one more comment, and then we're done. King Spleen said ESPN isn't dropping the ACC. They'll just renegotiate it at a lower price to include the Tier 2 and Tier 3 rights. Everybody agree with that? Disagree?
Yes,
what?
unless
No, that's right.
Okay.
I just wonder if they'll do it for the same exact length of time versus giving themselves some window latitude when everybody else comes to re-up in 2030, the years that you recited for the other three conferences. Like, do they want to guarantee that inventory through 2036 at a lower price, or would they want to just lower the price and lower the year so it cycles back up again when maybe the lay of the land is clearer and maybe they can bid on somebody else to fill those slots that might have a better product.
Anybody else? All right, a couple other comments going out here. Jared, evidently he corrects me. He's been here the whole show. He just waited to the end to comment. So I appreciate you being here, Jared. Thank you very much. Jamie Thornton replies and says, I said Immaculate and I would do a PTI-like show, the Big versus the SEC. And then she says my name, Bomber. Okay, whatever. I like I said, I think there's some ideas there that we could do. Immaculate would have to participate, though.
Just call it GTI and you'll be good.
In that kind of a situation,
GTI.
Are you okay there, Moen?
It struck me funny. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, that's all right. Just want to make sure you got.
I'm on pain medication. I'm sorry.
You are. I know. It's okay. You would need, just to clear this up, Immaculate would need to be a willing partner to that. I can't shove him on the show, Jamie. So we'll have to work on him. Other than that, guys, I think we are done. Let's give some stories going out of here. Rock and Rant, why don't you give everybody a sign off, tell them where to find you and kind of what to look forward to on your social media next few days.
Yeah, at Rock and Rant on Twitter, or X will always be Twitter to me, no matter what. But definitely curious to see what comes out tomorrow from North Carolina. But either actually in what we were able to see or what leaks out after. I'm kind of taking that we might hear more about what leaks out after, and that might be the more interesting thing. And then how quickly the ruling comes from the judge on the Florida State case, and because I think those are lightning in a bottle that can explode and really cause a whole other wave of things to happen right after that if anything dramatic were to occur.
Very good. Thank you for being here, Rock. I really appreciate it on short notice even. You too,
Yeah, no
Justin,
worries.
coming in and helping me tonight. Why don't you tell everybody where to find you and kind of what you're going to be doing the next few days?
Can find me at JUSTR_02, and I'll be following much of the same things that Rock and Rant will, but I'll also be following my Wolfpack in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, or hopefully make it to the Elite Eight. So that's what my Twitter feed will be filled with this weekend.
Congratulations to that, by the way. This has been
Thank you.
This has been a tournament like no other. So many upsets. Yeah. Anybody could win it that's in a Sweet 16, I think.
Hopefully it's NC State.
Moen.
Check out Moen Rants in the member-only section tomorrow. Inaugural episode. So long, Jack Storbrick. Gave you a little sample tonight. And on Friday, I think you know what's going to happen.
When people ask why you drink so much whiskey, it's actually because you have a genetic condition that your body doesn't produce its own alcohol. Therefore, you're forced to take a supplement.
That's the best one.
That's a Georgia Tech drop if there ever was one. I appreciate you being here, Moen. Thanks for helping out tonight, and I hope you continue to feel better. Everybody else, have a great night. Stay out of trouble. We are always on the lookout for things to do and stories to cover at the College Football Mafia world. On our network, we have all things all the time, and don't hesitate to give us ideas because we're always looking for things to cover. Other than that, I want everybody to have a great night. If you've been drinking, please do not drive. And other than that, everybody stay out of trouble, and we'll say peace out. See ya.
See ya.